Chapter 78. Elder! Baekchun stared in stupefaction while Hyunyun looked at him with dissatisfaction. Did I say something wrong? Baekchun rushed to clarify and repair the situation. It's wrong for a third-class disciple to go down to Hwaum village and drink alcohol. Although the child was given the authority by the sect leader to descend at will, was he given permission to drink alcohol too? I don't think he understands what he did. Hyunyung's face twisted again. He seems to have understood it clearly this time. And immediately, "You're someone who doesn't understand words." "What?" Hyunyun spoke without even trying to hide his anger. "Did you set the rules for Mount Hua?" "Huh, how could I?" "Then was there any rule in Mount Hua that prohibits one from drinking when they're outside the sect?" Baekchun couldn't bring himself to answer that question. No, there was no such rule. After all, what kind of sect would create a rule that forbids drinking? But a Taoist should have a sense of propriety. And Hyunyun looked at Baekchun. "What about it?" "Elder, what's wrong with having a couple of drinks?" Why did it seem like Hyunyung's face kept growing redder and angrier? That wasn't all. Eventually, Hyunyung's face turned beet red as he pointed at Baekchun. "There's so many bastards who can't even pay for what they eat here. But the guy who feeds you goes out and has some alcohol with his own money? Huh? What do you think you are? Do you think you can abuse your privilege as Sasuk to torment him?" "What? Sasuk?" "You're eating meat with the money he earned. Now he goes down and wants to have a drink with the money he saved up, but you can't stand it, so you come to me to snitch on him?" Baekchun floundered with a stiff face. It was difficult to understand. Why was Hyunyung cursing at him? Was this really just for saying that he saw a third-class disciple drinking? Is this really Elder Hyunyung? Supposedly, he was meant to join the North Sea Ice Palace, but ended up in Mount Hua, unable to fully demonstrate his skills. However, he was always known to be calm and cold. Is this really the same man? Seeing Hyunyung wide-eyed and yelling, it was hard to tell if this was a dream or not. "If you're really so bothered by it, go down to Hwaum and make some money. But no, you sit around gaining a reputation for just being a disciple and use your privilege as Sasuk to bully him. Swinging swords and meditating all day isn't going to bring any money or food to the table. Your mind. Use your mind and do something worthwhile. Should I open that head of yours and make something useful out of you? What did you people even do to earn the meat on the table?" Bang! At that moment, someone violently slammed the door and entered. "Here you are." A very strange smiling face appeared as Hyunsang covered the mouth of Hyunyung from behind. "Let go of..." "Let's go outside for a while, to a place away from the kids." Stay still." The sound of the door closing left the dining hall with a strange silence. No one could open their mouths. In that awkward silence, there was only one sound they could hear, the sound of something being eaten. "What?" Baekchun mumbled. "Just what happened here?" It was a statement that represented feelings of all the second-class disciples. "Isn't it too strange, Sahyung?" Despite the question being directed at him, Baekchun just silently set down the teacup in his hand. It was an old teacup that he had been using for a long time. Before he went into closed-door training, he thought that this cup had its own charm, but looking at it now, it seemed more pathetic than elegant. After all, this was the true state of Mount Hua. Old furniture, old buildings, and old people. The only hope of the worn-out sect were the disciples, and among them, their greatest hope was Baekchun. However, Baekchun returned after a year away, and now his hope seemed irrelevant to them. It's strange that new buildings were suddenly built, and it's strange that areas of the sect which were neglected for over a decade are repaired. No, I mean, that's a good thing. We couldn't do any of it before because the sect didn't have the funds. But, Baeksang spoke in a strong tone, unable to hold back his anger. Isn't the behavior of the elders too strange? We came back from such a long and arduous training, but the sect leader didn't say much. Didn't the sect leader praise you enough for your effort? Still, it's been a year since we've been away. He is a man who is eager for change. Baeksang bowed his head slightly. Thinking about it, the sect leader really didn't say much, but it didn't make sense to call him out like that. Sect leader could be fine, but wasn't Elder Hyunyoung or even Eungum Sasuk acting the same? Baekchun didn't respond. No matter what anyone said, it was truly bizarre. It wasn't like they were dissatisfied with their elders, but their treatment was strange. Didn't you feel it? The elders were all taking that child's side. Baeksang. Yes, Sayoung. I am not that ignorant. How could he not understand when he was cursed and yelled at right to his face? Sayoung, that kid, he is quite cocky, isn't he? Even if the elders take his side, shouldn't he at least bow his head when we, his direct seniors, come back? But that one... Baeksang went silent after that. If only that child had sneered or laughed at them, they could have called him out properly, but they couldn't do anything about his indifference. Baekchun narrowed his eyes. And I don't understand why Yusame is so interested in him. Why? Just why? A small ripple occurred in Baekchun's teacup as his hand lightly trembled. It could be that Yusame had some reason. But she barely speaks with us. I've never seen her talk so actively with anyone until now. And it isn't like we've only spent 1 or 2 days with her, right? Leaving us aside, at least Sayoung. Baeksang. Yes, Sayoung. Don't get too angry. Baeksang bowed his head and glanced at Baekchun's eyes. Baekchun tried to manage his expression, but it was inevitable that he would show a bit of how uncomfortable he felt. His eyes kept twitching, and he struggled to hold back a frown. I lost to that young boy. Not even a full saint or an elder. The difference of level between disciples within sects like Mount Hua is akin to heaven and earth. Just like how the Baek disciples couldn't speak against the Un disciples, Cheongmyeong also shouldn't be able to speak against them. Cheeky bastard. Baekchun bit his lip. At that moment, Baeksang, who bowed, continued. I apologize. It's just unfair. We returned after such difficult training, but the elder didn't recognize our efforts. And that snake-like bastard who appeared out of nowhere is taking over the sect by playing cute with the elders, right? The time where we could play cute with the elders has already passed. You know that's not what I meant. He knew. He knew it all too well. Baekchun let out a low sigh. It's a feeling of subtly being taken over. Were they away for too long? In the past, as soon as they returned, the adults would have greeted them warmly and then come to visit Baekchun later. Now, they barely showed interest in him. Instead, they were all looking for Cheongmyeong. Baekchun was unhappy over the sudden change in status. He didn't know what Cheongmyeong did to have such great expectations from the elders and receive their protection, but Mount Hua was his sect. Baekchun was the only one who received the expectations of Mount Hua's elders, and he had to be the guiding light that would return the sect to brilliance. Are you going to leave him like this? What more can we do? Shouldn't we at least beat it into him or discipline him? If we leave it as it is, Mount Hua will be a mess. Sayoung should establish order and set him right. Baekchun smiled bitterly. He didn't like when his juniors talked back to him, but he wasn't the kind to beat sense into others. Calm down for now. Sayoung! Baeksang raised his voice, which made Baekchun frown. Seeing that, Baeksang sighed and lowered his eyes. Seeing that reaction, Baekchun nodded with a satisfied face. It's not that I don't want to. Then why? There are things we need to know first. Huh? Baekchun shook his head and set the teacup down. There is a proper order we must follow. Don't you think it's necessary to know why the elders are all fawning over that child? Ah, right. We should do that. He's coming. Who? As soon as Baekchun finished, someone knocked on the door. Come in. He. With the sound of the door opening, the person who entered bowed. Disciple Yunjong is here. Welcome. Baekchun pointed ahead of him. Sit down. Yes, Sasuk. Yunjong cautiously sat down. He couldn't be sure if he should sit or not, despite the offer. Baekchun liked Yunjong's attitude. This is how things should be. Not behaving like that other bastard. Baekchun, who was relaxed, spoke in a soft voice. Yunjong. Yes, Sasuk. While I was away, you must have had a hard time trying to serve the elders and handle the disciples. I just did what I was supposed to do as a disciple of Mount Hua. Yes, you're right. That is a natural action. But... Baekchun paused for a moment, which made Yunjong lift his head to examine his expression, and then the expected words followed. It seems like strange things are happening in Mount Hua right now. Are you talking about Cheongmyeong? Baekchun didn't respond, but Yunjong knew what he aimed for. It is my fault for not leading the saje properly. If you are angry, please punish me, Sasuk. No, it's not something you could handle. What I'm saying is... Baekchun smiled. Tell me all of what happened while I was away. I'll listen to your story and decide what to do next. Yunjong sighed deeply. It's natural for me to explain this to Sasuk, but it feels like I'm betraying Cheongmyeong. Before coming here, Yunjong had already told Cheongmyeong. He asked if he could tell everything to the Sasuk who called him, and Cheongmyeong's answer was simple. Go! It would have been nice if he had given some instructions. Yunjong glanced at Baekchun for a moment and then spoke. First, I think I should begin from the time Cheongmyeong entered Mount Hua. As soon as Yunjong began to slowly unravel his story, the disciples listened to him with bated breath. And as the story continued, Baekchun's face gradually distorted more and more.